right, Columbia.
Took us a few minutes.
June 21st, 2022 meeting, of Union County Zoning Board of Adjustment joint session. I'm Rick Davis, chairman for the Union County Zoning Board of Adjustment. Also sitting on today's board are Vice Chairman Darren Green, Larry Witt, Bill McWhirter, Mark Dillard, and Alden Young Evans. Also present and substitute Mr. Jim King, who is glad to have you this night. Also, Ms. Amy Griffin is the clerk, and Mr. Derek Thurman is the attorney for the Board of Adjustment. Well, we're hearing of three types: an application for a variance from the regulations of the zoning ordinance, or appeal from a decision, or interpretation of the zoning administrator, or an application for a special use permit. The order of each case will be as follows. All parties that plan to give testimony, pro or con, must complete the green form to speak and be sworn in. Thereof there is code. The planning staff member will explain why a permit was denied, or why a variance is requested, or the nature of a special use permit application. The board may question the planning staff member. The applicant may question the planning staff member. Then the applicant presents his testimony for his case. The board may question the applicant. The planning staff member and persons in opposition may question the applicant. The applicant may present sworn witnesses that will be subject to cross-examination. Other parties wishing to speak pro or con will be given reasonable time to present sworn testimony that will be subject to cross-examination. The planning staff member, then the applicant, will be given an opportunity for a vote. After hearing the case, the board will review the case and render a decision. This is usually done following the close of the public hearing and the board's deliberation. However, the board may elect to take up to 30 days to render a decision. You may be present during the deliberation, or you may call the Union County Planning Department after session or receive the decision report.
just going to swear them in case they present the evidence. You guys mind coming on up?
Share, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the matter at hand?
Yeah,
I
you
do.
Remember, anyone that's going to be giving evidence needs to sign the little green sheets.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Is there anyone here that would like to continue so we give you a sign?
All right. As you stated, this is special use case 2022 SUP-02, and it's a special use request for an automotive repair and service. And I think that should say in the B4 zoning district. Property is located at 3707 South Providence Road, more specifically identified as parcel 06138-017C. The applicant is Mcneil Properties, and the owner is Providence Commons LLC. The applicant is seeking a special use permit, again, for an automotive repair and service center and for the construction and operation for a new Pet Boys facility. The property is zone B4 conditional. This was rezoned by the Board of County Commissioners back, I think, in 2016. This is one of our first cases for a conditional rezoning. The conditional rezoning does allow this use with the approval of a special use permit. It was not called out separately as one that didn't need that, so that's why they apply for the special use permit before you. And they intend to construct the proposed building out of similar materials as that of the one that's, if you're facing the property to the left, the Caliber Collision, which I think came before you as well. And all bays will be located on the side of the building. And there's some elevations that'll show you that in just a second. This is the property, so everything you see in red was part of the original conditional rezoning. The parcel highlighted in yellow is the site of the Pet Boys, and the one just to the north of that, kind of where my mouse is hovering over, that's where the Caliber Collision is permitted. Here's an aerial of the site. Again, you can see it's kind of in the heart of sort of north of downtown Waxhaw. Police station is a little bit to the north and west of this property, if you're familiar with where the Waxhaw Police Department is, so it's not too far away. They did get a permit from Union County and from Diener to do a mass grading of the site so they could prepare it for development. So that's why you see all that grading that kind of took place. This is their concept plan. This is the entrance road off of Providence. Lines up with the subdivision across the street. Just to my left off of this conceptual plan map is where the Caliber Collision facility will be built. Again, Pet Boys, you see the bays that are off to the side, so they will not be facing Providence Road. They'll also finish constructing the internal access road, which is here, to the extent of their property, and they'll complete the access off of Providence Road. They'll also build the sidewalk along the frontage there. This is the elevation of the building. So you can see this would be the portion that would face Providence Road, and the bays, again, are here. So that's what the side of the building would look like toward the parking lot. And I did go back and look at the Caliber Collision plans, and these are similar type materials. That Caliber Collision is a mix of brick and rock, and as you can see, this has a lot of brick and some wood accents on it, so it's similar to the Caliber Collision property. Again, zoning map shows this is B4 conditional. Again, this was rezoned by the board several years ago. It is completely undeveloped now. Again, there's a lot of grading that's taking place on the site. There's nothing on it. The Caliber Collision has gone through the reviews and they have been approved. I think we are at this point just waiting on the building permit to be issued for that to go vertical. I think I said they did, but I'm not 100% sure. They did. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It was a so you know what Caliber Collision is? Yeah, they're maybe a couple years, maybe. Yeah, a year and a half, something like that. There are some environmental features on the map. I did check on this one. It shows up as a wetland on this map. Apparently, this layer of GIS is old. This was an old pond that has not existed on this site since probably about 1993. So it was filled in a long time ago. So that wetland does not exist. The stream was accounted for in the mass grading permit. Diener did issue sedimentation erosion control permit for this site, and there was a wetland study done on it as well. So they are in full compliance with that. But you can see the site we're talking about tonight is not in the wetlands, and it's also outside of that stream buffer area. Providence Road, that's a pretty major road in Union County. You can see the 2020 daily trips are about 16,500, and as you all know, Providence Road will be a 4-lane with curb and gutter, hopefully at some point in the near future.
Help me get an idea of exactly where this is. I see Pine Oak Road there, I know where that's at. But,
Are you familiar with Cowett Marina?
yes,
So it's just to the south of Cowett Marina, same side of the road.
okay, so it's really a little north of Waxhaw.
It is, yes. So kind of I'm hovering over, I don't know if it's kind of a small print, but that's Cowett Marina right there.
Okay, I know exactly where it's at.
Yeah.
Okay. That's actually right along there where the sidewalk.
It kind of dips down. That's exactly where this property is, yep. Land use plan does call for this as a future commercial and retail, so this would be consistent with the land use plan. It is almost entirely surrounded by Waxhaw. There's a little opening there. So, as part of the comp plan, this was not, I don't know if you remember the transition zones in the comp plan, this was not considered a transition zone because it is projected as future commercial. And if the board chooses to approve this, we have a few suggested conditions. Again, a couple of these are pretty boilerplate. Must comply with all local, state, and federal regulations. Must comply with the UDO and North Carolina Building Code. That the applicant would install a 10-foot wide S2 screen around the perimeter of the overall development. They would have to comply with the approved tree survey and mitigation plan. And no vehicular bays to face Providence Road, and must be developed in accordance with the concept plan, including right-of-way dedication and sidewalk installation, and must fully comply with the approved conditional rezoning plan. And that the applicant, this is shown on the approved rezoning plan too, but the applicant shall install a crosswalk across Providence Road to connect to Kingston Drive, and that will provide an ADA compliant crosswalk that meets DOT standards for geometric design as well as for high visibility markings, and also provides a pedestrian control device such as a rectangular rapid flashing beacon in accordance with MUTCD. And I apologize, I actually had written down what MUTCD stands for, but I left it in my office. But basically it's not just your standard paint on the ground, that there's some flashing lights that when cars are approaching that they can see citizens. They must complete the western entrance off Providence Road to the full extent of the parcel, and they'll get a NCDOT driveway permit. Like I said, most of those are pretty boilerplate. They have to do them anyway, and then the rest of those are just keeping in compliance with the concept plan that the applicant submitted and the conditional rezoning plan.
Did the applicant, they agree to the staff's recommendation?
I don't know. I'd have to defer to the applicant. Jim, I think, has had those conversations with them. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Crosswalk design, basically, you approve that?
It would be DOT. So we actually coordinated this language with NCDOT. They're the one that gave us this language.
This will be installed for the business.
Yes.
There are traffic lights there.
There's not, there was some, and I'm sorry that I can't recall, there was some discussion about a signal as part of the conditional rezoning request. I could get that information, but I don't recall if that was required or not.
Anyone else have any questions?
All right, you're welcome.
Mr. Lane,
Oh, sure.
Is this crosswalk gonna be going across Providence Road?
Yes, sir. As part of the conditional rezoning, there was some discussion about a crosswalk, and it was shown on the concept plan. Well, and I guess some overall context of the what was approved as part of the conditional rezoning may help as well. So this is just one piece. Let me just get this pulled back up here.
Well, I guess, is there parking for this place on the other side of Providence Road?
There is, but so the original conditional rezoning included everything you see outlined in red. Two sites, one site's approved, this site is, subject to this hearing tonight. There are still two more sites on the road frontage to be permitted. I understand that one of those may be coming in soon, and there's still another site that may be approved for some retail or restaurants, or we're not exactly sure what that use might be yet. And then I understand that there's some discussions around the back portion through Waxhaw, but right now, what's approved is a large retail facility. So as part of that conditional rezoning, the thought was that, well, there are people that live out there that may not want to drive their car across the street, that they may walk. So.
Does the same company own all of that?
Well, it'll get sold off, so,
Well, I guess my question is.
but yes, now, yes, the same company does own it.
I guess I'm struggling with why the burden of the crosswalk is putting on this place when you've got all these others. And then my question is the same developer gonna develop all of it?
We would ask that same condition on any application that came in. We just want to ensure that it gets put in.
I also have a concern about that. I mean, it's a very busy road. I'm not sure, I think the speed limit is at least 35, maybe it's 45.
Could be 45 right there, yeah.
So it's, if they're gonna put a traffic light in, let's just start off with it.
And I'm not sure I know that the conditional rezoning, I'm almost positive that there was a requirement for a signal, but that was based on the large format retail, which is what's approved now. If Waxhaw, if this back portion gets annexed into Waxhaw and they do something different, that may change. But right now, there was a requirement for a traffic signal, so.
I think initially they would said this might be a Costco or something like that.
Something like that, yeah,
Yeah, and it obviously going to be stoplight.
right.
Kingston Road is one directly, the road across Providence Road from this location.
Yes, sir. That's the driveway lines up for this site with Kingston.
Any other questions?
All right. All right.
The driveway that lines up with them,
Mhm.
is that driveway for pet boys only?
No, that serves the
Or
entire,
is that gonna serve the whole?
that'll serve the whole site. Let me go back to the concept plan. It's not a full-blown plan here, but. So this is Kingston Drive, kind of where my mouse is sort of circling over. And this is the driveway going into the site. So
So that driveway will go, but you would be able to turn in there and access
Yes.
anything that's put in this total development?
yes,
Okay, I'm
Yes.
understanding better now.
Any other questions?
Well, I would say, this Mcneil Properties is developing this for Pet Boys.
I'm assuming that's the case. Yes, sir.
And they own the whole thing. You said-
Providence Commons, so Mcneil Properties is the applicant. Providence Commons LLC is the owner of the property. And that may be a good question for the applicant or the owner as to the conversations they've had regarding the crosswalk.
Sure.
Any other questions? Somebody this time, approve.
We'll step away slowly.
Or anyone,
It's that same as long, I mean, it's not-
35 minutes,
the applicant,
Thank you. Chairman, members of the board, staff, and council, thank you for this opportunity here. My name is Christopher Duggan of the Union County Bar. I'm here representing both the applicant and the owner for the development of this property and this application here tonight. Just so you're aware of the folks in the room, I wanted to make sure that everybody that would have a part in this process was here tonight. So we have our architect here this evening. We have the developer, the applicant from Mcneil. We've got Caitlin McCain from, for the financial analysis. We have David for the engineering, and we have Amy for the traffic impact. So, at any point in time as we go through this, if you all had a specific question for one or any of them, please feel free to ask, and we'll let them hear. And I forgot to mention, the owner's representation is here too. Mike, I'm sorry about that. All right. So this is a application for a special use permit to go to install a Pep Boys. And I'm going to try to pull up Lee's stuff with,
just one question.
yes, sir.
Okay, the gentleman that you pointed out there as far as the owner, is he with McNeil Properties or
Providence
Providence Commons?
Commons LLC. Yes, sir. So this is the concept plan. As part of the application that you have before you, there's a significant amount of attachments that were attached to that application. We'd ask that that application be moved into evidence as part of the applicant's case in chief. But again, we'll have individuals that have prepared the reports on those that I'll briefly discuss or have them come up and provide some testimony for you all. The applicant has the burden to demonstrate the 5 factors that are necessary in order for the special use permit to be approved. We believe that the application, as well as the reports that have been prepared and generated for your review, sufficiently meets the standards and would result in a approval of the application submitted by the applicant. I understand that, we had some discussion along the way here about Pep Boys, and, someone said, well, what kind of Pep Boys is it? Is it one that you go and work on your car outside the Pep Boys shop? There was some kind of concern that was levied out there about that, but that's not the kind of Pep Boys that are being designed these days. These are all interior workings, inside the shops, small retail counter. But if I could, come on up, Neil. Why don't you explain to the board who you are?
Right. I'm Neil Keenan, and I'm president of Mcneil Properties. I am also the developer for Caliber, and we are hoping to start that in about 2 weeks. It's been a long process. I think we were here maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago. But anyway, I appreciate y'all's time tonight. I'm a single net lease developer. Been doing this for about 25 years. I've done 55 Goodyear tire stores. I've done about 17 Pep Boys and done about 14 Caliber collisions. This is a site that my client wanted to be located in, and we started working on this a year ago, I guess, and we've gotten us to this point that we were in front of y'all for the special use permit. This is owned by Pep Boys nationally. This is not a dealer or a franchise operation. It's very strictly run. That is their prototype, but in order to keep with different municipalities that we in, we do adjust it to make it where it fits in with the neighbors and other properties around it. And I think it's a very clean operation. They've got 7 bays. All the work, as Chris was saying, is done inside the bays. Has about 1,200 feet of showroom space out front for the customers. It has Wi-Fi, TVs, coffee, so forth. We're very desirous of coming in this location. I think we would make a good neighbor, and be happy to answer any other questions you may have. Sure.
And you developed a Pep Boys before, I'm sure you've gone around and seen 6 months later, the operation of how things are going. You go by some many garages these days, they can't get parts for cars, so the first thing they do is park them out in the lot out there. And you go by a garage and you see cars just sitting everywhere. What is the possibility of that happening and degrading the neighborhood?
Yeah, that's a great question. This, again, it goes back to your operator. And one, I've done about 18 of these, and I've just finished 2 that is not a long period of time. I just finished one in Fort Mill, and I just finished one in Lake Wiley. And I have gone back to both of those, but they have only been open 3 or 4 months, so not a good test of what your question is, and it's clean as a whistle. I mean,
What about the parking spaces back behind the bays where the customers leave? How many parking spaces have you designed?
We've got roughly around 25 parking spaces, and normally they do not leave cars on the lot overnight. Their goal is to have, and they don't do any repairs whatsoever on the lot outside the bays. And as far as cars left, they try to keep as fewer cars as they can that stay there overnight.
And that's more questions about if you have a certain amount of vehicles sitting out there, would it be degrading to the rest of the California?
Yeah, there's very few left, and because of a liability issue, they quite often, if they do have to stay there overnight, they put them in the bays.
Okay, that
Yeah.
You don't have any questions?
Anybody else?
Let me, go ahead.
Are you acceptable to all of what the county is asking you to do to build it?
Yes, sir. I'll be honest with you, one of them was something I had not seen till tonight at the crosswalk, but I'll work with the Providence Commons Partnership and we'll get that done. But to answer your question, I was acceptable on all those and had planned to do all those things until that one item. And I'm not saying I will do it, but I was not aware of that till tonight.
Well, and I think, for that specific condition, we are still going to end up assuming that the DOT approves it. So we're going to have to get the approval, so we would agree to that condition so long as the DOT approves putting in the.
My understanding is that if we make it a part of a special use permit,
Okay, cool. Well, we'll do it. And, but that was something I was not aware of till tonight, but I will do it, so.
And be-
Any other questions?
if I may very briefly, you did also, because you are the developer of the site next door, you'll be making this in harmony with that Caliber development, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
And that has been through lots of things. We finally to the point now, we're getting a final building permit in the next week or so. So hopefully we'll start by 1st of July, I would say.
I have a question, if you're going through the, pipeline of the fact, does it will comply with the Waxhaw next conditional rezoning development standards? What is that?
That is that overall conditional zoning that Mr. Jensen has spoken about when, back in 2016, when it got approved for the larger parcel itself, for the zoning parcel. There are a number of conditions, and actually the conditions that staff requested that I attach to the application is Appendix B. And of course, we will comply with all of those conditions. And you intend to comply with the Union County codes and ordinances, is that correct?
Absolutely. And another point I'd like to make, because I know traffic is a real concern on, I think one of y'all mentioned about the traffic on Providence Road. Both Caliber and Pep Boys are low traffic generators. We're talking about 35 cars a day. Is a day, not an hour, not, you know, if it was a Wendy's or something like that, it'd be, you know, obviously a lot more. So both of these, Caliber is somewhere between 30 and 35 cars a day, and this is what Pep Boys has given me is roughly around 35 cars a day. So,
Well, now, will there be parts sold there, or is it just like tires and service?
would there be no part?
Parts.
No, great point too. Pep Boys used to have these superstores that were all parts. That is not this concept at all. They will not be selling parts. This is.
So basically, this is basically a
Service
tire
center.
and service
Bingo.
facility.
Bingo,
Okay.
absolutely. You're exactly correct.
If no further questions, I'll
Thank y'all.
Thank you, sir.
ask Ms. McCain, if you would, please. Ms. McCain, can you please tell the board who you are and what you do?
And the microphone, please.
Sorry. My name is Caitlin McCain, and I am
How do
a
you say that again, your name?
Caitlin,
Caitlin.
yes, McCain, and I am a certified general real estate appraiser.
Okay. And you were asked to perform some work on this project, is that right?
Yes.
What were you asked to do?
I was asked to determine the impact that this proposed project would have on surrounding property values.
And what did you review to come up with that impact?
So we review first the conformity with the neighborhood, as well as we then gather assessments and sale data of similar proposed projects in other areas and how they impacted surrounding properties.
Now, did you look at the impact, I believe the findings of fact for the board to make a determination is that the proposed development will not substantially injure the value of abutting property or as a public necessity. Did you look at the abutting properties that surrounded this property?
Yes.
And what did you find?
So the properties that abut this subject property are, we have Route 16, and then they immediately surrounds other properties that are owned by Providence Commons, and then you have residential to the east.
Were you able in your analysis to find specific examples where you have a Pep Boys right next to a property that had a sale, for instance?
Yes, so because it is a Pep Boys, there are many Pep Boys that we were able to locate. We focus on Pep Boys that have similar surrounding development. So we look at residential sales and commercial land sales to see if there's any diminution in value before and after construction, or for a sale that was abutting the Pep Boys versus a similar sale that did not abut the Pep Boys.
And based upon your review and analysis, and your qualifications, as well as your training and experience, do you have an opinion within a reasonable degree of certainty as to the outcome of your analysis?
Yes.
And what is that?
Our research showed that there was not a diminution in price per square foot for either residential or commercial properties that were adjacent to a Pep Boys or that were constructed before or after.
As part of your review, did you make a determination actually what happens to adjacent properties next to a Pep Boys in your analysis?
Yes.
Or an indication, I should say?
The research showed that the values or sale prices were either consistent or were even a little bit higher.
And as part of your analysis, did you review both the Union County concept plan as well as the Waxhaw concept plan?
Yes, I looked at both.
And do you have an opinion within a reasonable degree of certainty based upon your training, education, and experience as to whether this development complies with both the Union County concept plan and the Waxhaw concept plan?
Yes.
And what is that?
Appeared consistent with both.
If the board has any questions for Ms. McCain, I'd ask that her report, which is part of the exhibit to the application, be accepted into evidence.
Anyone have any questions? Mr. Thurman? Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, do we
Thank you.
need to make it
For
like
the evidence.
exhibit, whatever? Or-
Well, I think the whole packet was moved into evidence at the beginning.
Yes, sir.
of this presentation.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't know if you need to move each one.
No, and that's probably correct, thank you. I'm just trying to cover my bases and make sure it all gets in.
It's lawyering.
I know. You double, triple put things in, just make sure it's in. I'd ask Mr. Brandeis to come up, please. Can you please state your name for the record?
My name is David Brandeis. I'm a civil engineer. I'm working both for Providence Commons for the entire development. I was the engineer of record for the Caliper collision, and I'll be the engineer of record for the Pep Boys.
Okay. We have a picture of the concept plan. Do you see that?
I do.
And who prepared that plan?
I did.
Okay, and that plan is a part of the board's record at Appendix F. Will this development comply with the ordinances and conditions of Union County?
It does. It has the proper setbacks. There's a landscaping plan that goes with it. The parking number meets the requirements and other various items of the code.
What type of impact will this development have on utilities?
We've had some discussions with Union County. That was kind of a sticking point early on, was the sewer capacity. Pep Boys and Caliper are very light sewer users. Right now, there's 4,200 gallons per day allotted for the Caliper, which is significantly more than we need. And so we're working with Union County staff on reallocating some of that sewer towards this Pep Boys. Currently, I believe we show it as a septic tank potential, but we don't feel like we'll need that. We'll be able to utilize that 4,200. Just to give you a feel for 4,200 gallons per day, that's about 15 residential homes with washing machines, showers, dishwashers. Obviously, none of those are at the Pep Boys, so it's a much less sewer use than a traditional house.
And will the plan comply with the erosion and control permits that are currently in place?
They will. We'll have a site-specific erosion control just to develop this, but the mass grading is still ongoing. We're doing some of the SWIP inspections and making sure things are still being properly contained.
And was this project designed in conformance to be in conformance with the comprehensive plan for Union County?
It was.
And how about the conditions that are set out in the Waxhaw-Nixon conditional zone?
It was. We looked at those, made sure they complied, worked with the county staff to make sure those all met.
Did you run across any items that might have materially endangered public health or safety in the design of this project?
No.
Unless you gentlemen have any?
I got several. All right. Where on this site plan are you reserving room for the septic system in case you don't get it the other way?
There's room on the other side of the road. There's a piece of property bigger than this.
Pull that up, please.
Yes, sir. Get you a good one.
You can see the size of this property. The only two parcels that are, have development are the Caliper to the left, or excuse me, to the north, and this one, there's property moving backwards towards the back of this parcel that we would utilize for septic fields if
Right.
needed.
Where will the retention pond go for the runoff for this?
There's
whole-
already an existing retention pond.
Where's it at?
It's,
Why don't you use the mouse here to
yeah,
kind
sure,
of.
sure. It's located here.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so we're here.
So it's,
It's
if you're
located.
facing the property from Providence, it's to the left corner.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
It's really behind the caliper and a little bit ahead of the caliper, a little bit more north than the caliper.
And that retention pond's big enough for the entire partial for?
It is.
Even when it's, okay.
It is.
All right.
As we move forward with some other development, just for costs and ease of construction, there will probably be a second retention pond built as this develops out. Not that this isn't big enough, it's just a long run of pipe, and it makes a little bit more sense to work into a detention pond. Without getting in the weeds, we also needed some of the dirt to be able to fill some of the pads, so it became a very convenient place to mine some dirt on site.
It's a big pond, they
Yes, yes.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
Everybody good? Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Macy. Please state your name for the board.
Hello, my name is Amy Massey, and I'm with Kimley Horn and Associates, Inc.
And were you retained to provide some work at this subject application's property?
Yes, and I should have mentioned I'm also a licensed professional engineer in North Carolina. Kimley Horn was retained to perform a traffic study. It's actually called a Traffic Impact Analysis, or TIA addendum, to the previous TIA that was performed for this site back in 2017 for the overall whole site that we were talking about a minute ago. This
Firm did that as well?
No, we did not do the last one, no, in 2017.
Okay.
But this particular TIA addendum or traffic study was performed just for Phase 1, which incorporates not only this particular Pep Boys, but also the Caliber site that's already been approved, and then the southern piece that is being looked at as a self-storage facility.
In your analysis, what did you review to provide a report for the applicant?
Well, we followed all of the typical standards for traffic engineering and coordinated the whole study with North Carolina DOT and the county staff throughout the process. And both of those agencies, NCDOT and also county staff, have concurred with the study.
And what were these parcels originally planned for, do you know?
Yes, actually, all 4 of the parcels up front had been previously studied as straight or general retail shopping center type uses. And frankly, it was stated earlier, but these proposed land uses actually generate significantly less traffic than what had been studied previously.
So the application for this particular project would have a reduction in trip generations?
Yes, it would. I just did a quick look at the prior study and what's being proposed and did an apples-to-apples comparison of the square footage for, again, these 3 pieces for Phase 1 and 3 parcels that were studied before, and we're seeing a 92% reduction in daily trips.
Based upon your review, your education, training, and experience, do you have a degree as to whether this, or do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of certainty whether this development will materially endanger public health or safety?
It would not, based upon the traffic study that we performed and the agency concurrence on the study itself.
Does the board have any questions regarding traffic analysis?
Yes, I do. Yeah, under the final facts number 2, it says the submitted traffic impact analysis provides for recommendations which will be adopted as part of this development. What are some of those recommendations? I have to read everything.
Sure, sure. Well, actually, this study, again, in looking at the three pieces of Phase 1, all three of the pieces, has another access point associated with it to the south. So that access point would be constructed with 2 egress lanes, one turning left and one turning right. I wanted to get that one out of the way because it really doesn't have anything to do with this particular project that we're focusing on tonight. The, what we're calling access number 1, which is to the north and aligns with Kingston Drive, as was mentioned earlier, that would have a singular egress lane coming out. And then Kingston itself would have 2 lanes coming out with restriping of the current pavement that's out there. And so that one would be subject to it being able to be done and approvable with the existing pavement.
Those are not part of the conditions that the county has suggested at this point, but we offer them as part of transparency.
All right, but maybe I missed something here. So we talked about the main entrance where we're going to put the crosswalk and all that, right?
Right.
So are you saying that there will be other entrances into Providence?
The overall project, yes. So there'll be one down by the mini storage place as well, and that one has potential to become a traffic signal in the future, but signal warrants are not met there currently, or with Phase 1, or excuse me, with Phase 1 traffic at the secondary access to the south.
Talking about the entrance, when you're looking here where the South Providence Road is and where the proposed development's going to be, where does that road come into? Is it directly across from Kings Drive?
Yes, it must align with it. Mhm.
So is it on the property line or is it all on this property?
The actual configurations of the sites themselves will be adjusted based
Okay.
upon, yeah, they'll widen out some parcels and turn to the other.
That was my question, why it wasn't shown
Yeah,
on here.
yeah.
Any other questions? No. All right, thank you.
At this point in time, we have the architect for Pep Boys here. Just bring him up for you folks. Please state your name for the board.
It's Michael Murray.
And Mr. Murray, were you retained to perform some work on the subject property?
Yes, we were retained to be the architect of record.
And I offer Mr. Murray to the board for any questions that they may have. He generated the concept plan that will be built from that design. So any questions regarding its conformity with the neighboring property that Karuba conforms with in harmony with that development?
Yes, it does.
If the board has any questions for Mr. Murray.
Anyone have a question? No, all good? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
At this time, the applicant will request an approval of the special use permit 2022-SUP-02 with any and all conditions proposed by the county for adoption as part of this special use permit application and in accordance with the Waxhaw-Nixon conditional zoning permit.
Mr. Duggan had asked that the entire packet be introduced as an exhibit at the beginning. Now that you've heard from everybody who's contributed to it, you can accept it.
Okay, so we'll accept it as Exhibit 1? Okay,
Yes, thank you.
all right, thank you. Is there anyone else want to give evidence for the petition?
No, sir.
Is there anyone want to give evidence against the petition? Okay. All right. We have now concluded the portion of the cases. Thanks.
Can I do, I have one more question. I'd like to get it out of the way now before we go into this other part.
For them,
Yes. The young lady that done the impact, yes. Explain to me again what you were saying about this, when Rick asked you about this one thing about the traffic deal, and you said it pertained to other parts of it too, of the development. Explain that a little closer.
Are you talking about the secondary access point?
The one,
Things talking
the,
about provide recommendations which will be adopted as part of this development.
Oh,
Is that what you're
Okay.
asking?
yes,
so the access point that would be aligning with Kingston, it would have a singular exit with a stop sign and a singular entrance lane. And then Kingston itself would have a separate right turn lane coming out, assuming that it would fit as a restriping of the existing pavement that's out there, which is about 31 feet. I just measured it today. So assuming that's approvable by North Carolina DOT and the town of Waxhaw and the county, then that would be something that this group has agreed to.
So your recommendation would be that Kingston have a middle exit that would cross over and match up with the entrance to the new property. And then the exit that would turn right out of the new property could also go straight onto Kingston? And then Kingston would have a right turn access that hadn't.
Let me say. So I'll take it from you. The access point for this particular development coming on the eastern side, it would have a single lane coming out and a single lane coming in. So from that lane going out, you could turn left or go through or go right. So it would need to be aligned properly with Kingston. The Kingston, the existing Kingston pavement of 31 feet would be designed to have a basically striping there that would show an exclusive right turn lane and then a combined or shared left through lane. So that would have to be properly aligned as well to go through east and west.
And just for the board's knowledge, when 16 gets approved, what kind of will happen with the restrictions on that access? To your knowledge, as it stands now.
We're not 100% sure, but based on coordination with everybody, meaning the county and in particular NCDOT, they are likely going to make this access a right in, right out. And that's one of the reasons why we're only recommending a single lane coming out, because it would turn into a right turn lane, a right in, right out.
That's for the future forward.
Right.
That's right, but right now it would be full movement.
Right. Is that good, Mark?
what part of that though, I hate to be picky, but what part of what was written here pertains to other parts of the entire development? Because, and the reason I'm asking this, we're here for a site-specific special use permit. And our findings of facts need to pertain site-specific to that. And you kind of lost me a little bit when you were discussing further or future development of this complete site.
And that's really a good thing in my mind, is that we're taking a phased approach rather than the previous traffic study that looked at the whole site, and there were a lot of unknowns as far as what the other land uses would be. So they were pretty jacked up as compared with what we're looking at, for example, for these particular three sites
Yeah,
in terms of traffic generation.
And I agree with you. But we're given a special use permit for a Pacific Pit Boys on a Pacific site. And we can't take into consideration what might or might not happen when the one develops the other one. That's why I want to, any of the language on this that pertains to something that might happen in the future, we need to take it out of the finding of facts.
Well, hold on, Mr. Thurman, you see a problem with it? With what he's talking about?
Well, you can't support your findings of fact. Oh, I kind of understand this point. You can't support your findings of fact for this site on something that may or may not happen
Right.
in the future. But I'm not sure, I mean, I think and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the reference to the other entrance was just more informational. I don't know if that's tied into what's typed right here.
Yeah, that's just, they're taking, Ms. Macy was taking the number of properties, so you have those 4 properties down there, and specifically the Caliber, Pep Boys, and whatever might come in the future, and saying, hey, instead of going back and doing this all again, the next application that comes in, here's what you need if you get to that 3rd parcel. Is you
Okay,
need that separate.
but all I was trying to do is clarify.
Yes, sir.
That what you had written here on the finding of facts didn't pertain to any of the other partials that wasn't there yet. That's all I was trying to clarify.
And we will limit it strictly and solely to this parcel.
Okay.
Any requirements that will be strictly and solely to this parcel.
Okay.
And for clarification also, the Kingston Drive really doesn't have it, that's just something that's being suggested. That has nothing to do with this.
Right, and that's also what the 1 lane in, 1 lane out is also a suggestion by Ms. Macy. The board can simply say, we're okay with how it's going to be set up currently, how it's zoned to be set up currently. Or you could take the recommendations of Ms. Macy as part of that for an increased action. Go ahead. I see it.
I was just gonna say, I mean, on the Pet Boy side, I mean, you're gonna have a lane coming in, a lane coming out. That's how you're gonna access the property, so that, you can't build inside unless you do that. Across the street, yes, those are recommendations, we haven't asked for those for conditions, they're gonna do it if it would fit within the existing payment. But they're not included as any of the conditions that we've asked for. Again, that goes back to that, the issue where there's a lot of coordination. We don't want to ask for a condition that may not be able to be met.
All right, Mr. Thurman, are you good with the wording of it the way it stands now?
Yeah, well, now that we understand what, I think the concern was over this first sentence on number 2. What exactly,
Yeah.
what the recommendations were, which, and as long as we understand that now, I think that's
Well,
the 1 lane in and 1 lane out.
And we need to clarify that the suggestions for Kensington, however you say it, Kinston, is purely up to you guys, that it's not a part of the,
Right, it's not a requirement.
right, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Thank you.
You good with it?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? All right,
Thank you.
Okay, we have now concluded the portion of the cases that pertains to the presentation of evidence. The board shall now proceed to the discussion and decision portion of the cases. Interested parties are not permitted to address the board during this portion of the meeting. However, everyone is permitted to remain present and listen quietly to the board's discussion and vote. All right. All right, let's open for discussion. We go with the findings of facts. Number 1 is the proposed use does not comply with all regulations and standards generally applicable within the zoning district and specifically applicable to the particular type of special use. They're saying it's true, in addition to being in compliance with all regulations and standards, the project will comply with the Waxhaw Nixon conditional rezoning development standards and condition CZ 2017-001 attached to this application. Any comment?
No,
I make a motion, we approve this.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Okay. Discussion? Mr. Thurman, is that good? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, going to number 2. The proposed development will not materially endanger the public health or safety. True, the submitted traffic impact analysis provides for recommendations which will be adapted as part of this development. All services and utilities are available to the site, but the development will not have a negative impact on such utilities. The project will be subject to all grading and soil erosion permits and regulations. Discussion?
Well, I think, it's interesting to look at this, and I know where Mark was coming from, but on the other side of it, if 6 months from now, they're looking at this, they'll say, well, we looked at the long-range impact. It only makes sense. We're here looking at this stuff, so the long-range impact for the traffic, for the rest of the development, I'm glad it's there, actually, I understand where Mark's coming from. It could raise an issue, but I think it's better to have more information.
Well, my main concern was that the condition for this finding of fact didn't affect something that wasn't done yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're correct, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I appreciate the fact that the initial development, 2017, whenever we can have significantly more traffic, apparently, based on the study than this. So that's definitely positive for the community, for that very busy road.
Yeah, right.
I would make a motion to approve.
Got a motion approved, have a second.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? All right, the proposed development will not substantially injure the value of abutting property or is a public necessity. True. Submitted as part of this application is the financial impact analysis prepared by Cooper McCain, the certified general real estate appraiser. The analysis prepared demonstrates a lack of substantial negative impact on abutting properties. Ms. McCain did the impact study, and I think she went through that pretty good. Any discussion?
Motion approved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 4, the proposed development will be in harmony with the area in which it is located. True. The proposed development will meet all conditions set under the Waxhaw Nixon Conditional Rezone Development Standard and Conditions, CZ-2017-001. Project is located on the main transportation corridor. Discussion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second? All in favor? Number 5, the proposed development will be in general conformity with the comprehensive plan. True. The proposed development will be in general conformity with the previously approved Waxhaw Nixon Development Plan, which is CZ-2017-001. Any discussion? Is there a motion? Approve?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so now, with all the findings of facts, do I hear a motion that the petition be approved?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve special use permit petition 022-SUP02, to include all, staff recommendations for conditions.
Mr. Thurman, is that good? Perfect.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank y'all for your effort.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Yes, sir.
See you.
Man, how did that do that? Well, it was.
Thank you, good to see you.
Chris, you spend a while and you and Lee can talk and just maybe sing. We don't get to see much,
Yeah.
you know, maybe I.
Well, who takes the lead on the singing though?
And,
I just-
I'm sure it's gonna be you.
Yeah.
I've heard him try to sing.
You hear that nasal laid background, you don't want to hear that singing.
Have a good night.
Mr.
Be out in the boat,
Good with
boat.
everything? Do you have any other discussion, any other information needs to be brought forth? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn. Well, when they, wait, we're gonna have to ask Andy, will it be a July meeting?
We're not positive, I don't think so.
I don't think there is, just don't hold me to that.
Jim's on vacation, I'll verify it on Monday, and I'll send y'all an email to let you know.
Okay.
How about that?
Thank you. All right, we had a motion?
Second.
All in favor? Thank y'all.